Let's expand the conversation. Lisa Shickerling, a DA Member of Parliament, joins us to talk about this. A very good evening to you, Lisa. Thank you for your time. I mean, you have raised some concerns here when it comes to the dangers of a lack of clearance. I mean, we're talking senior police officers here. Talk to us about some of those concerns.
Good evening, Paul, to all the listeners and the watchers out there. Thank you very much. You know, it is something I raised last year in November already. The answer only came back in January. I've followed up with another question again later on in the year, actually at the end of January, to ask for further clarity, because it can never be that we're sitting with so many of the higher ranking top brass in the SAPS that do not have police clearance. It is completely unacceptable. If there are certain requirements for you to be able to do your job, then you should fulfill these requirements. And it cannot be right that certain people have these police clearances and some do not. It takes probably 2 months or so for you to apply for a police clearance. It is very thorough, the checks that they do, but it expires every 6 months. And at this stage, the police, one of their requirements is that they go through these checks every 3 to 5 years, which we do feel is very long. It should be a minimum of 2 years and a maximum of 3 years. I think 5 years is very long. And we are starting to question these checks, and we would like to appoint independent company to make sure that these police clearance and the checks on all of these members are done correctly.
Are there any automated systems in place to monitor police leaders' activities and flag potential security risks at this stage?
So unfortunately, South Africa doesn't really have a fully automated system to do these checks. We really do make sure that we do that our internal systems are correct, and that track the behavior of the police officials, including all senior leaders. We make sure that the intelligence agencies, such as the SSA, monitor potential security threats, and if there's any corrupt or criminal ties to these officers. But as we all know, intelligence in our country is vastly lacking at the moment, and there are unfortunately some activities that do fall through the cracks. And we are very concerned that we are sitting with so many of these members that don't have the necessary clearance.
So when it comes to the initial vetting process for police top brass, is there a criteria for selection? I mean, you're making a recommendation here that we should at least be doing this every 2 years, but on what grounds would that, necessitate the move?
Well, obviously, when the candidates do apply to these senior roles, we have a look at their qualifications, their work experience, their leadership skills, and it's reviewed on an annual basis. And we have to make sure that everybody complies to these checks. It's the same as civilians that apply for firearm licenses. They have to apply every 2 years, and the SAPS only goes through police firearm training every 5 years. So there's a disjoint between normal citizens and police officers, and we should close this gap between what is required for a normal citizen and what is required for a police officer. Obviously, also we do background checks on these individuals, and there's checks that were done. Obviously, there are triggers that would fall into play should they want to review the clearance, such as if there's allegations or misconduct. But it takes so long that the actual process is very cumbersome, and there's a lot of red tape, and we should really be cutting this red tape down.
When it comes to candidates' background checks and what databases are used to verify their identities, is there a level of confidence with those systems?
Well, obviously, yes, there is. I mean, the National Intelligence Agency is contacted, and we use Interpol, and then obviously the database of the SAPS. But as you know, our systems are a little bit outdated, and it's something that we've called for frequently, is that the SAPS systems are updated as a matter of urgency in South Africa. And I think once all of that is updated, we will have a much better turnaround time. but we definitely do have agencies that assist us with these checks. We also use the banks, financial institutions to make sure that the financial backing and the information that we receive of these members is up to date.
You mentioned that, you know, some of the loopholes is that the intelligence is lacking and activities are falling through the cracks. How are we measuring the impact, or on a much larger scale, as we look at the state of crime in South Africa, organized crime, and and the accusations that police should be more proactive and not reactive?
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of good police officers in South Africa, and we've recently done oversight, and I've really had the privilege to meet really good police officers. But however, like anywhere in the world, we have a few bad apples, and I think once the top management of the SAPS has a look at this, and we get rid of all of the officials that are not actually acting in the best interests of South Africa, and we clean up the management of the SAPS, it will filter down into the lower ranks, and we'll be able to clean out the rest of the SAPS to make sure that South Africans, that the SAPS wins back the confidence of South Africans, if I can say that way, because there's a lot of lack in that. People don't trust the SAPS anymore. And how do you trust the SAPS if we can't even make sure that our own police clearances are in place? And where's the accountability and the integrity and the trustworthiness that goes hand in hand with all of this?
When it comes to psychological evaluations, I mean, are they conducted as part of the vetting process?
Yes, so psychological tests are conducted to assess whether the candidates have the emotional stability. It is a difficult job. I mean, working with bad things the whole time. So you have to be emotionally strong to check the leadership skills and to make sure their decision-making abilities in these high-pressure decision-making roles are in place. So they do personality tests, stress tests, and then obviously evaluations from psychologists if needed. But again, this is something that is lacking in the lower-ranking police officers. Psychological tests are done when people apply to the SAPS, but they are not conducted in such a stringent way as what they used to be in the past. And this is also where people fall into the cracks, and that's where some of the bad elements enter the SAPS.
Very well. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Leaving it there for now, Lisa Shickerling, DA Member of Parliament, joining us to discuss the importance of police vetting.